Today we are celebrating the disappearance day of His Divine Grace Bhakti Prema Swami, Prabhupada. I shall try to speak a little about the worldwide impact of this special soul that Krishna personally sent to be amongst us. Om Agena Tiranandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurmalitangena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Sivasti Gaur Bhaktivinoda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. His Holiness Supereme Swami Skyped me while I was in Vrindavan, a excerpt of Prabhupada speaking about the associates of Lord Chaitanya, how all the close associates of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, you know, he had his main limbs such as Advaita Acharya and Nityananda Prabhu, and then the smaller limbs like Gadadhar, Shivas. As Narottam Das Thakur sings in his song, all these associates of Lord Chaitanya are eternally liberated souls who accompany Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So Srila Prabhupada was explaining that that reality of eternal associates of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Nityasiddhas, eternally liberated, extends even to this date, he said. This is Srila Prabhupada in a backhanded way revealing his status. He explained anyone who is spreading Krishna consciousness all over the world, in other words, someone who set off a flood of love of Krishna that covered the whole world. Srila Prabhupada explained that is a Nityasiddha, eternally liberated personality. You have to understand the wording and also how Srila Prabhupada would talk about himself. He would give hints, very loud hints. And it's 100% obvious in this quotation that he's speaking of himself. To date, when he says anyone to date, means what's happening right now. That means what's happening right when he was speaking and about what he was doing. How have we achieved this most rare fortune to take shelter within Srila Prabhupada's house? We don't know how fortunate we are. You see, it is one thing to have the loving personal care of such an extraordinary devotee. And naturally, in our hearts, we all long for that. Because everyone wants love. Everyone wants the personal interactions of love. So Srila Prabhupada gave that to those who were fortunate enough to be around him. And we should understand that not everyone who was fortunate enough to be around him took advantage of that mercy. It is true that anyone who has the personal service and personal association of Srila Prabhupada, especially fortunate. We're not against recognizing that devotees have special fortune. That's a part of Vaishnava humility. Now, another thing is what they do with that special fortune. But the first principle is to be willing to recognize the special fortune of devotees. Then again, Srila Prabhupada made the analysis that if you judge who is most dear to him by how physically close the persons are to him, he said, well then, the mosquito is the dearest devotee. But he added, what's the obvious purpose of the mosquito? It's so close, but his purpose is to bite. So he was teaching us that physical proximity is not everything, because in those days, devotees would judge by how close someone physically was to Srila Prabhupada. And if that person later misused their free will and independence, we'd be shocked. How could this happen? Of course, in Chaitanya Lila, you read about a devotee who accompanied Lord Chaitanya to South India. What was his name? And he fell into some problems in which Lord Chaitanya had to personally drag him away from those problems. So in the purport, Prabhupada explains that here you see that someone's personally assisting Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, but they fall into Maya because the living entity has its independence to use or misuse. So Srila Prabhupada demonstrated such extraordinary loving exchanges. But he did even more than that. And this is what's very important for us to think about. He established a framework. He established an institution that would perpetuate caring for devotees and nurturing them in Krishna consciousness. This has never been done before in Gaudiya Vaishnava history. Never before. In the Gaudiya line has an institution, and certainly an institution the size of ISKCON, outlasted its founder. In this way, I hope you can understand the inconceivable contribution of Srila Prabhupada, the love supreme. First of all, there's no doubt his personal dealings were so unbelievably potent. Anyone who was around him would testify to that. But he went further. Besides his personal dealings, he set up an umbrella that everyone can live under and be protected from the hard rain of Kali Yuga. So both those contributions make Srila Prabhupada's gifts to us unparalleled. We look at the world situation today and we see global problems. Someone was just telling me today in your papers, economists are saying that this is the worst economic crisis that's ever hit. Even it's worse than what happened in the 1930s. The whole world is bewildered. What to do next? The usual Solution is someone starts a war and sorts things out again for another cycle of boom and bust. We can see that to deal with these global problems in a Krishna conscious way, a global effort is required. So basically, Srila Prabhupada established a multinational bhakti entity that spans the globe for giving shelter for aspiring devotees to help them go back to Godhead. We have the accounts of his personal association, and we can also feel his care and love through the framework that he established, which goes far beyond just the traditional village care that a guru would give for his disciples who lived in the immediate village. Srila Prabhupada provided a global framework for aiding persons to become Krishna conscious, caring for them, giving everyone an authorized chance for going back to Godhead. The beginning days of ISKCON were very sweet. Those of you who read the Devamrita, no doubt you wish, oh, why couldn't I have been there? Srila Prabhupada himself referred to those early days on 2nd Avenue as very memorable times. Years later, he would reminisce, oh, those were good days. Days when, for example, at 2nd Avenue, Srila Prabhupada would wait in line with the new devotees to take a shower. I'd like to read to you from the Devamrita an additional section at the end. A section which shows the amazing breadth of Srila Prabhupada's personal love. He once said that in order to start this Krishna consciousness movement, he practically had to walk through fire. Now that's the kind of love you want to depend on. Someone who will walk through fire to care for you. We know how irresponsible relationships are these days. How weak the bonds are, how there's no duty consciousness. Everyone's basically in it for themselves. Parents have lost their sense of duty for their children. In husband-wife relationships, commitment is a thing of the past. But when we hear about what Srila Prabhupada went through to establish and push forward this Krishna conscious movement, his walking through fire, we can actually taste what is real love. Otherwise, what will we know about love? So now, Srila Prabhupada and his very small group, they've opened a temple in Los Angeles. First on the West Coast, there was San Francisco, Haight-Ashbury. Now it's Los Angeles. And Srila Prabhupada, the devotees have rented him some small facility in Los Angeles. The first temple in Los Angeles is a storefront. That was the tradition, get a storefront. and any storefront that the devotees could afford was generally run down. It's not like get a storefront like what you have downstairs here. So, Srila Prabhupada's quarters were a small room, a bathroom, and then a small, what you would call living room. But in that living room, there would be 4 devotees staying who were supposedly assisting Prabhupada. And then Srila Prabhupada would be in the back room, which was even smaller. And everyone would use, there's only one bathroom, everyone used the same bathroom. So this is how Srila Prabhupada began his Los Angeles mission, just as he had begun the Second Avenue mission. I'll start reading. It was only 4 days after Prabhupada's arrival. He had just risen from an afternoon's rest, walked into the front room, and there was Subal. Prabhupada was surprised. Subal was supposed to be in Santa Fe. Prabhupada had sent Subal and his newly married wife to Santa Fe, New Mexico, to start a temple there. Generally, the devotees would come up with ideas where were the happening places. So these were countercultural hippie days. So Santa Fe, New Mexico was known as like Haight-Ashbury in San Francisco, and the Village in New York, Greenwich Village. So Santa Fe was known as, you know, a bustling alternative place. The couple, were there by themselves, and Prabhupada had written them, just go on preaching, never mind if no one hears, just continue. This is the general instruction that Prabhupada gave to all the devotees in the early days when they began their missionary work. He said, he would say again and again, never mind if it seems like no one's listening. We're just trying to please Krishna. This reminds me of what Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur told the first devotees who came to London. He told them, you probably won't see the results of your efforts for another 100 years. Now, how many of you could take that kind of service from your guru? Please do this, and by the way, you probably won't see the results for another 100 years. What would your response be? Excuse me, Gurudev, but goodbye. Maybe I should get a Siksha guru. Something, you know, to get around it. So, this is the kind of instruction that Srila Prabhupada was giving his disciples. Just go somewhere, just like I've done, and chant nicely. If you chant nicely, Krishna will hear nicely, and he'll send someone. He stressed that the important thing is to try and please Krishna with the outreach activities. So Subal and his wife, newly married, they had gone themselves to Santa Fe, New Mexico. Now, Subal has showed up in Los Angeles. He just walked. He just entered Prabhupada's quarters. What does he say? My wife has left me, Subal burst out. And a sad tale followed. Subal told how he had left his wife, Krishna Devi Dasi, alone at the Santa Fe temple for a few days and gone to New York to visit his parents. Meanwhile, Krishna Devi had run away with a boy who had been visiting the temple, and she had decided to stay with him and give up her husband. Prabhupada told Subal, don't worry, everything will be all right. I will write a letter to Krishna Devi and tell her to come back to you. You can go back to Santa Fe tomorrow and everything will be all right. Subal left the next morning for Santa Fe. And Prabhupada, although calm in Subal's presence, began to show deep disturbance over the sordid affair. Krishna Devi was his disciple, and he had performed the sacred marriage ceremony for her and Subal. He had asked them to be an ideal couple, cooperating together in Krishna consciousness. Together, they had gone to start the center in New Mexico. Don't be discouraged, he told them. Even though no one may come to hear you, still you chant and hear. But now, Krishna Devi has simply left the temple and her husband. When Subal arrived back in Santa Fe, he found that Krishna Devi and her boyfriend Randy had left town. Meanwhile, in Los Angeles, Prabhupada received a letter from Krishna Devi. She said she wanted to stay in Krishna consciousness, but with her new boyfriend. This is all nonsense, Prabhupada exclaimed. I will simply go back to Vrindavan and sit and chant Hare Krishna. Why should I do this? Why should I deal with this quarrel between husband and wife? This is not the business of a sannyasi. Prabhupada wrote a letter to Krishna Devi in care of the Santa Fe temple. Your recent activities have been very much upsetting to each and every member of our society. I never expected that you shall act in this way. If you love me at all, and Krishna at all, you should immediately return back, either to me or to your husband without delay. In your letter, it is understood that you are repenting. You have done a great mistake. Come back and everything will be all right. To Subal, Prabhupada wrote, I'm very sorry to learn about your present plight. You must be feeling a great shock for the separation. But there is a great lesson also. Anyway, if you are feeling too heavy-hearted, you may come here and live with me for some time. I hope I shall be able to ease your heaviness. But before Prabhupada's letter arrived, Subal had already left Santa Fe for Los Angeles thinking, I can't take this anymore. I'm going back to Swamiji. Sitting on his porch, taking his noontime massage, Prabhupada suddenly saw Subal, looking more miserable than ever, coming up the sidewalk. Subal! Prabhupada called out, remaining seated. Subal approached and offered obeisances before Srila Prabhupada, who sat in the California sunshine and dressed only in an Indian gamcha, while Gaur Sundar massaged him with mustard oil. You did not get my letter? Prabhupada asked. No, Subal replied. Yes, Prabhupada nodded. You have got my letter. I have written you and told you that if you are feeling too heavy-hearted, you may come here and live with me for some time. Subal. So I moved into the crowded front room of Swamiji's apartment. I slept in the living room, right outside of Swamiji's room, and there was only a curtain separating us. At night, I could hear him dictating Srimad Bhagavatam. He asked me to carve some Radha Krishna deities for him. I had already carved some Jagannath deities, and now Swamiji said he wanted Radha Krishna deities carved. So I bought a block of mahogany and began carving Radha Krishna. We'll just skip ahead a bit. One day, as Subal, Govindadasi, Rai Rama, and others sat with Prabhupada in the shade, Prabhupada observed a pair of white butterflies. Just see these worms, he said, pointing to the butterflies. Here also there is husband and wife. The whole world is in this bondage. Knowing Subal was still lamenting, Prabhupada continued to speak about the topic on both their minds. It is not so wonderful that Krishna Devi has left, he said. What is wonderful is that we are able to stay and serve Krishna. The Maya is so strong. It is Krishna's divine energy. And for someone to actually stay engaged in Krishna's service is very rare. The living entity is practically helpless under the sway of Maya's power and can only cry out to Krishna for help. But we have to pray at every moment that the power of Maya does not disturb us. I would like to say, how many of you are prepared to accept that kind of loving responsibility? To pray to Krishna every moment that you don't fall into Maya? It seems too much, doesn't it? But that is just like the dependency of a child on its parents, especially the mother. The child is always calling out to mother, looking to mother. So why can we not depend on Krishna in that same way? So it is not a burden to pray at every moment that the power of Maya does not disturb us. But notice how we want to make like an autopilot solution. I call out to Krishna once. Krishna, okay, turn on the autopilot. I called out to you one time. Okay, make it all right. In other words, I don't want to keep calling out to you. Once should be enough. That's our standard, right? When we think of a lifestyle of constantly calling out to Krishna, we think, oh, that's too much. How much does Krishna want out of us? But again, just think of a child. A child never gets enough of depending on mother, calling out to mother. You can study little children, how they're always scrambling on the lap of mother, trying to get mother to feed them, and causing disturbances just to get attention. When we really understand how dependent we are on Krishna, it'll be a great day. But we're so proud. And what makes us so proud and hard-hearted? It's contact with the material energy. Gives us this false sense of competence, especially living in these mega cities like London and New York and so on and so forth. You get a bit of pride. I can survive. I'm able to hold my head barely above the water, but it's above the water. Right? You get the sense of false competence. I'm no village person. I can live in London. And that struggle for existence in these mega cities makes our heart very hard. You have to fend for yourself. Always watch your back. You don't know what problems tomorrow will bring. Where is the security? Is there job security? Is there social security, governmental security? All over the world, people are on a hedge. Where is the security?
Hare Krishna. So now we'll be hearing about Maharaj. Hare Krishna. Jnanatimirandasya jnananjana shalakaya chakshurunmilitam yena tasmai shri gurave namah. Is my screen visible now? Just a second. Yeah. So, His Holiness Devamrita Swami Maharaj. So, Maharaj is specifically known as author, educator, monk, and spiritual leader. About early life and education of Maharaj. Maharaj's birth name was David Lawrence. Birth year was 1950 in New York City, USA. And Maharaj got graduated from Yale University, United States of America, which is one of the most prestigious universities in the world, and it's very difficult to get admitted in that one. And during his time at the university, he began deeply questioning about modern society's materialistic point of view. And he was actually intellectually inclined and spiritually inquisitive. He used to seek deeper meaning beyond academics and social success. And thus, while studying, he came across the writings of His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. And when he got to the books of Srila Prabhupada, he was very deeply inspired. And he was actually inspired by Prabhupada's clarity. The clarity in the philosophy was the one of the main reasons that dragged him to join ISKCON. And basically, the book which he encountered was none other than Srila Prabhupada's Bhagavad Gita as it is. And was also inspired by Prabhupada's purity, logic, compassion, and the simplicity he gave. So thus he joined ISKCON. So Maharaj became an initiated disciple of Srila Prabhupada in the 70s. So he was one of the very early devotees who joined Srila Prabhupada in the United States. And in 1982, formally accepted the sannyas order. So before that, as soon as he joined in the early 70s, he became a dedicated brahmachari. And initially, what he started with the preaching was preaching among students and intellectuals, as Maharaj was from one of the very prestigious universities. So he was awarded the seva to preach to the youth and the intellectuals, because, as we know that people generally get attached to the tag name of the universities attached with the person's name. So Maharaj used to preach various intellectuals over the United States. And Srila Prabhupada personally gave him the name Devamrita Das. And he was personally known at that point of time for his sharp intellect, deep philosophical understanding, and ability to present Krishna consciousness rationally to educated audiences. About the preaching and education mission, he travels extensively across North America, Australia, India, and Europe, presenting Krishna consciousness to universities, communities, and youth audiences. He is known for his intellectual yet accessible style, linking ancient bhakti principles to modern psychology, economics, and environmental ethics. Provides guidance to ISKCON's youth initiatives, inspiring a new generation of practitioners. So Maharaj has been preaching for over more than 4 decades. And Maharaj is a very renowned preacher and teacher in ISKCON. And he has traveled even in the countries I didn't mention, Asia, I just mixed Australia and Asia. So Maharaj is also, his preaching style actually is very philosophical, because he belongs to a very philosophical class of universities. So he also teaches very philosophical and practical. And we see that, for example, if in case you encounter with a science student, that student will always try to prove his intellectual abilities by not by defying the laws of spirituality. So Maharaj I heard one lecture when Maharaj used to preach to the students of science, where they try to defy the spiritual stuff and just outshine their materialistic point of views. So Maharaj also emphasizes the relevance of Krishna consciousness in solving modern problems. We heard this statement in the lecture which we heard. So modern problems needs Krishna consciousness as a solution from all point of view: social, environmental, economic, personal, etc. About books and publications. So Maharaj is an amazing writer, and books by Maharaj are as follows: Searching for Vedic India, that emphasizes a bridge between modern science and ancient Vedic wisdom, written especially for educated seekers, as I was mentioning in the last slide, that how to defy the intellectual so-called scientific upgrades, that Vedic wisdom is way far more better updated than the modern science which they are trying to prove. So this book is for them. Second book is Perfect Escape. It explores how bhakti offers an authentic solution to modern suffering. Itself is a whole soul topic. And the third book is Hiding in Unnatural Happiness, which connects neuroscience, psychology, and the bhakti tradition to uncover lasting spiritual fulfillment. His works skillfully blend modern research with timeless wisdom, guiding readers toward genuine happiness and inner freedom. So, about the services and contributions of Maharaj. Maharaj is an educational and preaching services. As we said that he was from the Yale universities, over 40 years of global teaching across North America, Europe, Asia, and Oceania, renowned for university preaching and inspiring the youth and intellectual audiences. Apart from this, Maharaj's special contributions were like apart from the youth and intellectual preaching, which has been done to prove that Vedic wisdom is way far more better than the modern science. Maharaj also served as a GBC for ISKCON, especially in the area of New Zealand. And over there, he pioneered the Bhakti launch in Wellington and other centers that make spiritual wisdom accessible to youth in a relatable way. The problem of the youth is they don't relate to the spirituality. They feel that it's outdated. They will be called so-called outdated guys in the modern generation. But Maharaj is specifically known for preaching in a style that the modern youth makes the spiritual wisdom. I mean, they can relate it in the spiritual wisdom in day-to-day life. Maharaj has also established sustainable eco-villages so that devotees can blend simple living and high thinking in their own lives, and setting up the communities which are focused on self-sufficiency, ecology, and spirituality. About leadership and mentorship, as I told that Maharaj is the GBC for New Zealand, Australia, and the United States. Founder and mentor of Bhakti Launch and another monk programs, fostering spiritual communities and youth engagement. As I said about the programs in New Zealand. Maharaj advocates for sustainable living and conscious leadership within ISKCON. Other services, Maharaj inspires global audiences through lectures and retreats on bhakti and sustainable living. Founder of Bhakti Launch, guiding youth towards spiritual growth, promotes eco-conscious, simple living based on Vedic wisdom. Mentor to communities worldwide, fostering empathy and cooperation. Renowned speaker and author, sharing Krishna consciousness with modern thinkers. Actually, Maharaj is particularly known for his deep humility and intellectual sharpness and uncompromised dedication to Srila Prabhupada's mission. Maharaj also often challenges the modern worldview with spiritual realism, like as we saw in the first slide that even during his early college days when he didn't get connected to ISKCON, he was very much focused on the spirituality side. So from that point of view, Maharaj was bit towards spirituality, and now Maharaj encourages people to rethink how spirituality can change their life. Just not the scientific and modern solutions, but the Vedic, ancient, and spiritual solutions. So, in case you hear the lectures by Maharaj, this was the lecture which we played about Srila Prabhupada's Disappearance Day Glorification lecture. But normal, when you hear the lecture, Maharaj is very logical and he talks very logically, practically, and he's very intellectual. And that's one of the reasons, like the modern youth, the so-called intellectual ones who say themselves, get attracted to the spiritual side, which is presented by Maharaj. So about the current activities of Maharaj, Maharaj continues to travel globally. He conducts various lectures, retreats, and leadership seminars. Maharaj is active in mentoring young devotees, especially because Maharaj is into youth preaching more, and developing bhakti outreach programs. About Maharaj's qualities, Maharaj exemplifies discipline, humility, and deep scholarship. He's known for his personal austerity and modern approach to teach timeless truths. His presence brings both intellectual depth and spiritual warmth. Continues Srila Prabhupada's mission by presenting Bhakti Yoga as a complete lifestyle of wisdom and compassion. About remembering Srila Prabhupada, Devamrita Swami. In Atlanta, Prabhupada began his lectures not by singing Jai Radha Madhava, but by singing Parama Karuna Pahudui Jana Nitai Gaura Chandra in a very slow moving melody. The temple was not large, so it provided an intimate setting, and there Prabhupada gave one particular lecture which I will always remember. The lecture only lasted 3 minutes. I was sitting right in front of him, and he began to explain how Lord Chaitanya and Lord Nityananda are so merciful. They are giving Krishna, although no one knows who is Krishna. And he urged, take shelter of Lord Chaitanya. As he was speaking like that, his voice full of wonder and devotion, just 2 minutes into the lecture, his voice began to crack. And as I sat in front of him, I saw the tears shoot from his eyes, like coming from a syringe. Then Prabhupada stopped speaking, and without another word climbed off the Vyasasan and left. And devotees who were with him, when he went to his quarters, said he didn't speak at all about what had happened. So, Maharaj witnessed all these things live, Srila Prabhupada. So, you have seen such amazing Vaishnavas still in the mission, teaching us, guiding us in all the possible ways. So, make sure not to miss any of those moments where we can learn practically. Even if we hear the lectures from Maharaj, there are so many things which we can learn. Like there are series of lectures and seminars available on the internet, which will guide us in various ways. Jai His Holiness Devamrita Swami Maharaj ki Jai. Jagat Guru Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. Nitai Gaur Premanande Hari Hari Bol. Hare Krishna.